Springfield Township Board of Trustee meeting. It is November 12th, 2014 at approximately 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, may we please have the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Burning?
Present.
Mr. Harnelaw?
Present.
Ms. McFarland is called away out of town, so.
Okay. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing that we have on our agenda this evening is a public hearing involving the rehire of a reemployed retirant, and I would like to call this public hearing to order. As I had previously stated, it is November the 12th, 2014 at approximately 5:30 p.m. This is a public hearing by the Board of Trustees pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 145.381 to consider the rehire of a reemployed retirant. The Board announced the date and time of this public hearing during the September 9th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board, and has also posted notice of it on the Township's website. Do we have a motion to convene this public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
Mr. Harnelaw?
Aye.
We are convened.
Mr. Hennenkamp, we discussed this at our prior township meeting, but would you just go ahead and restate the facts for the purposes of this hearing?
Yes, Mr. Hunterlaw. As you mentioned, we actually first talked about this briefly during an August work session of the board, and then more formally at our September 9th board meeting, where we actually announced, as you mentioned, the public hearing for this purpose. But sort of the background, the employee is Lieutenant Dave Schaefer, who is a lieutenant in the Township's Police Department. Lieutenant Schaefer currently has been assigned to DART as the commander of the DART unit. This is the he's the second employee that we have assigned, command staff employee that we've assigned to serve in this position since the DART was modified several years ago, so that we sort of combined the administrative and the command and field positions into one. Probably a little background in order for what DART is. It's probably not commonly understood, and it sort of is kind of a unique hybrid. DART is the acronym for Drug Abuse Resistance Team, and it is a regional drug task force which is comprised of 16 different police agencies from around Hamilton County. It serves as kind of a covert task force, and it's comprised of the commander position, which up to this point has been a full-time position, and then 2 part-time employees, and then there are officers that are assigned from some of the member police agencies, and I believe there's currently four police officers that some of the member jurisdictions will put into DART for some period of time, and they work undercover. So in essence, it's not quite like VICE, but it's the drug component of VICE. For many, many years, well, let me go back. DART has a board which is comprised of the police chiefs from each of the member jurisdictions, and DART requires that one of those particular jurisdictions serves as what's known as the administrative agencies because it is funded through grants. Blue Ash served as that administrative agency since its inception up to, I believe we said, about 8 years ago. And then it was at that time where they decided that they no longer wanted to serve as the administrative agency. There was some discussion among the board as to what agency would be willing to do so, and that's when Springfield Township stepped up to become the administrative agency of DART. So it's sort of unusual. It doesn't use any township funds per se. DART is funded through grants. I think there are grants that are administered by the state of Ohio, but some of it's coming from federal grants that the state actually gets and administers. But there are, some time and related, some costs to the township for the oversight responsibilities that we have to perform. And the employees of DART, other than the police officers, the 4 police officers, the commander and the 2 part-time actually serve as township employees. So even though their salaries are being paid for by the grant, not really coming out of our police district money, they do sit as township employees. And then the assets of DART actually technically belong to the township. So overall, I guess since the existence of DART, if we didn't have DART, and why DART is a huge asset for us, we estimate, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood, if we had to take on this function just alone as a township, and DART didn't exist as a regional task force, you're probably talking maybe $500,000 in additional expense that it would cost the township. So that's sort of the background of how we get there, what DART's about. As I mentioned, the case we have here is Lieutenant Schaefer, back, I guess about July, made the determination that he was going to retire this year. In November, there's been some changes to OPERS as to how they're doing some things related to health care. It's been fairly prominent in the news and not necessarily required, but has led to a lot of individuals retiring now, because if they don't do so, they lose certain benefits or they have to wait several years. So he made the determination that he was going to retire this year. And when we looked at what that might lead to us, what situation that might cause the township, we felt that it was in the township's best interest to maybe consider whether he'd be interested in returning to that position. The commander position is highly specialized. It uses and requires a lot of unique covert training and experience and knowledge related to the covert operations, as well as the administrative grant funding that's required for DART. It utilizes highly technical and sort of specialized equipment, as well as the specialized training that is required. So it was our intention to try to retain those skills that Lieutenant Schaefer has. It would be very difficult. If we lost that position, we'd have to put another one of our high-level type personnel in there that really wouldn't have the training. Or there is one person, Sergeant Niehaus, that previously held this position, but to return him back to DART would mean we'd lose him in his capacity on the road as a sergeant. So I think it's sort of for all these reasons that both the chief and I are sort of in favor of doing this situation. We did look at the position and would recommend several changes. The purpose of tonight's hearing and the reason for tonight's hearing is this is required by law. Ohio Revised Code Section 145-381 requires that any time the board is even going to consider this issue, that you do sort of 2 things. You give 60 days notice of your intention to have a public hearing, to allow the public to know, give notice of your intention to do it, and then have the public hearing. And then also the second part of it is that before you actually do it, that the hearing has to take place within 15 to 30 days of the actual start date of when the position would commence as a retirement. So the changes that we've made is the position currently is full-time. As I mentioned, he's a lieutenant with the police department, full-time capacity. We would be recommended that the position be modified to a part-time position with a maximum of 1,820 hours. That his compensation for the position would then therefore be reduced to $75,000 a year, which is a 16.5% decrease. That his new position would not include any type of township benefits, such as sick time, vacation, holiday, or personal day. Healthcare would be required, not necessarily as a benefit, but it would be required by the Ohio Revised Code and by the ACA due to the fact that it's going to be over 1,500 hours. So by virtue of it being 1,820, that sort of requires us to provide the health insurance. The position also would not carry any kind of departmental rank, so he would not carry that rank of lieutenant. He would simply be in as the DART commander. And really, the other thing is that we've sort of made it clear, DART is funded by grants. We fully expect those grants to continue, but with grants, you never know. So this position would be contingent on, of course, continued grant funding
Program.
of the program. In the event that it wouldn't, now the township, there may be a different way to fund it, but at least we're putting that in up front that, if the funding goes away, this position in DART in its entirety could go away as well. So kind of wrapping it all up and looking at for where the position is right now, where it would be in this capacity, there would be a substantial savings, not necessarily to the township directly because, again, of the grant funding, but overall savings of roughly about $40,000 because of the reduction in the salary. It's about $15,000. The reduction of benefits is almost another $18,000. His pension will change just automatically as a rehired individual. As a police personnel, his current pension is at 18.1%. As a civilian retiree, that pension then goes at 14. So there's some savings just right off the top from that standpoint. So when you total that all up, you get roughly around $40,000 in potential savings from what the position is paid now to what it would cost in this new format. So that was sort of the impetus behind all of this. Obviously, Lieutenant Schaefer is interested in returning, or we wouldn't be here if he had no desire for the position. But right now, it's sort of a good win-win, and I think it helps the township, allows us to keep the position and somebody that we've spent all the money training in there at least for the next few years.
All right, Mr. Henkamp, thank you. Is there anyone here in attendance from the public that would like to make any comments this evening? We'll let the record reflect that there is no one wishing to make a comment. We will consider taking action on this item during the regular portion of the meeting in just a few minutes. Do we have a motion to adjourn this public meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bernie? Aye. Mr. Honlaw?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
All right, going on with our regular meeting under departmental action and discussion items. Mr. Hennekamp, do you have?
You want the fiscal report?
We jumped right over that, didn't we? Yes.
All right.
Mr. Burning,
You want to skip me? I don't mind.
I don't want to leave you out. You go right ahead.
I hear you. For the month ending 10/31/2014, the township expenditures were $1,503,600 approximately, and the receipts were $1,336,000 approximately. The ending cash balance was approximately $18,800,000, this includes obligations for expenditures, payroll, regular operating costs, ongoing capital improvement projects, and investments. What I do request is a motion to approve receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, updated and current revenue and reports for the period ending October 31st, 2014.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and just everyone knows that the financial reports are available for viewing at the administration offices weekdays during regular business hours.
Thank you, Mr. Burning. Next, moving on to departmental action and discussion items. Mr. Hennekamp.
Okay, I have a number of action items for the board. The first is to seek the board's authorization of moving forward with a resurfacing bid award that we had. The bid opening that took place on Monday was for the project on Arvin, Bermuda, and Helmsley resurfacing. This was a skip application that we made back in actually last year and received notice of award at the end of last year. The funding becomes available in July, And like we've been doing on some of the projects that are fairly sizable, rather than try to, you can't even bid it until at the end of July, so we've postponed those because you can't get them all done in one construction season. So this is a project we hope to construct in the first part of 2015, but in the bid opening, it appears there was the total of 4 bidders, and the low bidder at this point is Atleta Construction at $598,984. The second lowest bidder was Pruse Construction at $614,332.50. Then R.A. Miller Construction at $641,858.35. And lastly, Barrett Paving Materials Incorporated at $702,223.80. I might mention that the estimate, the engineer's estimate on this project was $728,000, I believe, right, John? 724. So substantial, all of them under that, and the apparent low bidder substantially under that. This is a project that's a 50%, grant, 50% either loan or matched by the township. So, it's good news that this comes in because this will lower our portion of it from, roughly 360 down to, right around just under 300. So
Yep.
at this point, seeking a motion from the board to allow us to award the bid to Atleta, of course, pending final legal review and final review by John of all of the details.
But
of the
at
bid to make
this
sure
point,
it
we've
meets
looked at
compliance.
everything, the math is good, and they're in compliance. Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item I have is a motion for the board to set the holiday schedule for our senior community center. This is pretty consistent with what we've done in the past for the upcoming holidays that would be closed the week of Thanksgiving. That's November 24th through Friday the 28th, and then also Monday, December the 22nd through Friday, January the 2nd.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is the item we had the public hearing on, and that would be a motion to rehire Dave Schaefer as a re-employed retirant, as a part-time DART commander. I think we've gone through all the background. This, of course, would be contingent with all the things mentioned, that he'd be going from full-time lieutenant to a part-time DART commander position, as I mentioned earlier, would have no rank. It'd be a maximum of 820 hours per year. Did I say 1820?
You said 820.
1,820. The health insurance would be provided, as I mentioned, as required. Would not have any types of employee benefits, so no sick, holiday, vacation, personal, or longevity with the position. And of course, the position be contingent on the continued funding of the DART grants.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
All those in
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item I have has to do with our aggregation program, and just wanted to bring something to the board's attention. Is we've been, I think, doing the aggregation program for about 8 or 9 years. In the current, we currently have a one-year deal with IGS Gas. They've been our provider since the inception of the program. This is a variable rate contract that we have. It ends at the end of March 2015. This is generally the time of year where we would be bidding for that period of time. We have a contract with Independent Energy Consultants, and that contract requires a 120-day notice if we desire to make any types of change. There's also language in that contract that allows us to bid other carriers, other providers during that time. But if we want to preserve our rights to go with someone else, it's really now that you would have to give Mr. Burns, at roughly about December the 1st, would have to give him notice if it would be our intention. I don't don't think at this point we're recommending that, but the one thing I would mention is that there are times, I think the board understands that even though Independent Energy opens up his bids to any provider, there are certain providers that don't bid through him just because they do it a different way and they do it more directly. So while we'll get 3 or 4, maybe 5 Independent Energy, there's some that we know don't. For example, DERS and a few of the others. So I guess what I'm a long-winded way of saying, if we don't preserve and give Mr. Burns his notice now, we'll sort of have lost that opportunity
To consider these.
to consider the others,
Okay.
if you wanted. By giving him the notice, it doesn't necessarily mean we'd be canceling his contract. We could still wait and see what comes in and then make that decision at that time. So just giving the board that option that, you know, we're probably not going to have, well, we could technically have that work session at the end, which would be time to do it, but now might be the appropriate time to take that action.
I think it makes sense. We want to keep all our options open and see what, what other ways we can try and save money for the residents.
Because they do send a bid out to like 20 different people. We usually get like last time we got, I think, 3 or 4 bids is all we got,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's going to do nothing but potentially give you
right.
more opportunities, given that, there's a couple of more, and that allows you to maybe consider some different options or different techniques. I mean, I think he's done a great job, tries to open it up there, but like I said,
Right.
there's a couple of providers that don't use brokers, they go directly.
Right.
So, it might just allow you to consider it and give you
More options. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next item is to seek the board's authorization to re-enter into the agreement that the township has had for, how many years now, Rob? Has it been 3 years since we've gone?
3 years.
This will be the 3rd year with the agreement with Colerain Township Fire Department. This is sort of a first responder arrangement that we've had with Colerain Township to serve primarily the Pleasant Run Farms area. I think it's worked well, and Chief Leininger is recommending that we move forward. There's no changes in the terms or cost increase, so at this point, we'd be renewing it for the next 3 years, effective first of the year, 2015.
Do we do those on 3 years, or are they yearly?
We've done this one as a 3-year. I believe the last one was 3 years as well. That's why it's coming due. There is a cancellation, or, there's a provision in the contract where if we wanted to get out by giving notice less than that, but this just establishes that the rates won't be unchanged for the next 3 years.
I think that's a good idea, and we're not going to be building any fire stations up in Pleasant Run Farms right now, so I think it's a good idea.
But we continue to have a good working relationship. It just shows another example of collaboration with our neighbors. It's a good thing.
Exactly. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then the last thing I have under action items would be to seek the board's authorization to enter into the agreement with the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. This is something that I think we had not done for several years. We did it again last year, and it makes a lot of sense. I think for the cost, this is roughly right around $5,000. And the utilization of services that we've been able to use, mostly, Chris, I know you've used them for primarily mapping and GIS type services, has been well worth that investment. There are other obvious ancillary benefits as well, but just purely from that standpoint, we think it's a winner.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
For discussion, the only item I have would be the personnel update, fairly limited activity in the fire department. Did accept the resignation of Brandon Cable as a part-time EMT firefighter. His resignation was effective October 25th of this year, and also accepted the resignation of Porter Hughes, who is a building monitor back in our senior community center, and the effective date of his resignation is October the 21st. And I know Kim has a community events and programs update for us.
Thank you. Arts Connect is continuing the Winterfest tradition in Springfield Township. The event is on December the 6th. That event does remain a free program, and it runs from 1 to 4 p.m. We'll start off with a Madcap puppet show. After the Madcap show, we have professional pictures with Santa. Kids are making gifts. We've got hay rides, face painting, concessions, games. We're also partnering with Finneytown cheerleaders who are collecting toys for Children's Hospital. We'll have a bus out front where people can drop off their donations to go down to Children's Hospital. And that event is December the 6th.
Thank you, Kim.
I know the board has copies of the departmental and activity reports, so unless there's any questions on anything on that, that's all I have, Mr. Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Hennenkamp. Next, moving on to board resolutions. The first resolution that we have this evening is resolution number 87, 2014. And this is establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have resolution number 88, 2014, authorizing the private sale of vehicles forfeited to the Springfield Township pursuant to section 4503.233E1 of the Ohio Revised Code, which are no longer needed for public use, are obsolete or unfit for use in the police department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Finally, we have resolution number 89, 2014, which is supplemental appropriations within the General Fund, Fire District Fund, Ambulance and Emergency Medical Services Fund, Public Improvement Tax Increment Equivalent Fund, and adjustments within the Task Force Grant Fund. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Do we have any old business before the board?
I do not have any.
Any new?
No.
No news. Okay. Do we have anyone here from the public that wishes to address the board this evening? Yes, sir. If you would please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Will Fry, Corman Fry and Associates, 938 Hempstead Drive. Just a couple of questions. I see by the website that the economic development tax is going to be used to balance budget, excuse me, and implement economic development initiatives. If I have any clients that are interested in moving to the area, what are those economic development initiatives that I can tell them to look forward to?
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Hennenkamp, I don't know. That's probably a very broad question that could take quite a while to answer. And
There's nothing specific in the way of initiatives, like abatements of real estate tax or anything like that?
Yeah, well, there's the CIC, which is a Community Improvement Corporation.
Well, if they
That's
don't live here and they're going to move in, like I said, if I have clients that are interested in moving in their business into here, what are their initiatives
Right, that's
that
what,
the economics development,
that's what I'm saying. The board created what's called a CIC,
okay,
which is a Community Improvement Corporation.
okay,
That Community Improvement Corporation is a board, consists of the 3 trustees, myself, and 1 other community member. Those initiatives there haven't been any developed yet, with the exception of the residential incentive grant. That's something that the board's going to be considering. Some of the ideas that are out there are some tax abatements that are available. Typically, that's not for a retail, the township, that's.
so there really aren't any economic development initiatives for a business person. Is that what you're telling me?
Currently, right now, there are. Those are the tax abatements that I'm talking about. Those are administered.
Oh, I
jointly
thought
by-
they were only to residents. I'm sorry.
No. There's several things. There's the residential incentive grant.
Yeah,
That is one. Businesses can apply for tax abatements currently. Yeah, property tax
Okay.
abatements. That program is jointly administered by the Township and the Hamilton County Development Company.
okay.
There are several initiatives that are being considered. They haven't been developed completely yet, but that is what's been discussed during the CIC, is some of those. I mean, and those things can be, there are things like what's something called a community reinvestment zone, or a CRA, and these can be abatements that certain business owners can get if they make improvements to their property. The businesses, if they're a resident, as you said, they can apply for the residential incentive grant. They can get their
Okay.
JED's portion.
So for an outside business moving in, there really isn't anything except a possible real estate tax abatement.
Currently, yes.
Okay. The second question I might have is, there was a lot of rhetoric when you were trying to get the JEDs passed about needing it so you didn't have to raise real estate taxes. There's a rumor going around that that's real estate tax increases are back on the ledger. Is that a correct statement, or is that a bad rumor, or where is that? Are we going to raise real estate taxes in spite of the fact you convinced all these people that the JEDs would prevent such a thing? Where are we going with that?
Well, I don't know that we ever said to anybody that if the JEDs passed, there would never be
No.
real estate tax. Let me finish. There would never be a real estate tax increase. There is no, as we sit here today, no active, I would say it's a bad rumor. There is no active movement on right now to increase real estate taxes. But I guess that answers your question.
Okay.
It's not been discussed.
Okay, then that's a bad rumor that I heard.
Well, if I could address, I mean, there's a couple things. I think if you go back through the JED's hearing, that it's just not true that we clearly explained that the JED's was going to generate potentially $1 million a year. That was our estimate, between $1 million and $1.2 million. The township lost $2.5 million in revenues through the state cuts. This was never, now, there were various campaigns, there were various groups that did things and said things. I'm talking about what was said by staff, what was said by the board, was never that the JEDs was going to replace the loss of all the revenues. It was a gap that if the JEDs didn't go through, further cuts would have to be made. But is it going to pay for future police levies, future fire levies, future road district levies? We specifically said those things, it doesn't even touch any of those things. Those would carry on. But if the JEDs didn't go through, all of those funds would be impacted, because the things that the general fund does now, it wouldn't even be able to do the current things. So it's not double talk, it's not semantics. I can go back, and if you want to sit down, I can show you the PowerPoint that was used for all those things and all the slides that explain
Well,
that.
the meetings I said, okay, we're done with this.
It was, we went through all of those issues. I know
meetings I
various
sat
people
here-
said different things, I know that.
It was brought up that you need this so real estate taxes don't keep going up.
It was definitely
That was said.
not, that there'll never be another tax.
It was, I think what was said was that, and even in the mailer that the township sent out, was that the JEDs was a way, and the board didn't feel like raising property taxes for the general fund wasn't appropriate at this
That's
time.
correct.
So it was the JEDs was to prevent a possible levy to be put on the ballot for general fund funded services.
Some of the confusion, I think, at our last work session, we were talking, or maybe two work sessions, we were talking about road improvements. And we had John come up and tell us, well, what would it take to fix all our roads? And it was brought, and we said, this is never going to happen, but it would take taxes to do it. And on a blog I read, somebody brought it to my attention that we're going to raise taxes, the blogger said. That isn't true. We said it's not going to happen. So I think that's the misinformation you have.
All right.
It was brought up that if we wanted to fix all the roads in 5 years, it cost us $50 million or 48 million, it'd be $9 million a year, 9.5 million. And this is how much we would have to tax people to raise that. It's not going to happen, but it was, we have our departments look at everything. We want to get updates on the roads, we want to get updates on the fire, and they're discussed in the public meetings. Now, if somebody blogs about saying, they want to raise taxes, that's what happened, and we didn't say we were going to raise taxes. If we were going to do it, this is what it would take. And the board all said, we're not going to do this, but let's hear what the problems are, so we know the problems. So I
Okay.
think that's where the confusion came.
Well, the residents will be glad to know that you're not going to do that.
Well,
The
I
final
would add, the
question
residents
is-
are the ones that do it. It's not-
Exactly,
The
Will.
board doesn't raise it, the board has.
Well, you put it on the ballot that you
Right,
need the
and
money
they
to do it with, so you instigate it, we'll call it.
The residents, the board has the decision to decide to place issues in front of the voters. The voters decide, as they did in the JEDs, whether to raise or not raise taxes.
Okay.
And just so you know, Will, that is our job, to put stuff in front of whether we're for or against a specific issue, it is our job to put stuff in front of the voters and let them know what it's going to do or
Okay,
not
well,
do.
you settled the question. That was a bad rumor somebody started, and I appreciate that that's what that was. The final question is the current budget, is that public information?
Yes,
And how do you get that?
always has been. Just
How do you-
request a copy,
From whom?
the
Township.
township.
At the front desk here when they're
Okay.
open during regular business hours.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you could probably send an email and they'll have it ready for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? It appearing that there's not, I believe we need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing public employment contracts.
Yeah, for the official is reviewing negotiations, collective bargainings with public employees concerning their compensation and other items and conditions of employment.
So moved.
Stated much more eloquently than I did. Seconded.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Mr. Honolo?
Aye.
We're in executive session.